Councilor Jackson.
Here.
Councilor Brown. Here. Councilor Storm.
Here.
Councilor Cable.
Here.
Councilor Stritchett.
Here.
Councilor Booth.
Here.
Declaring a quorum present, we will begin. First matter is a resolution to authorize the mayor to have various weeded lots abated per Title 11, Chapter 67 of the Code of Alabama, 1975, as amended. Is anyone present that would like to speak in favor of this resolution? Is there anyone present that would like to speak in opposition to this resolution? Hearing none, I declare the public hearing on this matter closed. At this time, we will move into our City Council meeting. You're invited to stand for our Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for our invocation.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Will you join me in prayer, please? Father, in the midst of our personal agendas, we pause to thank you for the generous gift of this day and for your gifts of life, health, strength, and for the safety of our community. Our heartfelt sympathy is extended to friends and families of our community that have lost loved ones in recent days. We're mindful of all that are daily wrestling with the challenging issues of life. We ask for your hand of comfort and your gift of peace to be with all affected. We pray for all citizens that are providing service to their fellow man, whether local or abroad, whether military, civilian, or public service. We pray for their efforts to be successful and at the end of their duty, for their safe return to their family. We pray for the health and healing of nations in conflict, our country, our state, and our great city, and their respective leadership, and for all of those that have an influence on history. Tonight, as we conduct the business of our city, we pray our thoughts and actions are pleasing to you. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Madam Clerk, will you call the roll, please?
Yes, sir. Councilor Strickland.
Here.
Councilor Jackson.
Here.
Councilor Brown. Here. Councilor Storm.
Here.
Councilor Cable.
Here.
Councilor Stritchett.
Here.
Councilor Booth.
Here.
Declaring a quorum present, the meeting is called to order. Character trait of this month is cooperation, understanding others so I can effectively work with them. This time, the chair calls for the approval of the minutes of the public hearing in the City Council meeting held April 3rd, 2018. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. Thank you. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the minutes signify by raising your right hand. All opposed by a like sign, the minutes are approved. This time, the council will entertain comments from persons present regarding items on our agenda this evening. Hearing none, this time, Mr. Mayor, have a report.
Yes, sir. If I might have a numerous points of privilege.
Yes.
And if I can, at this time, I ask Chief Thompson and Captain James Harry, if him and his family would come forward. And then I have several here for the police department. And as Captain Harry is coming forward with his family, I'd just like to say congratulations. He is our newest captain with the Prattville Police Department, so we can give him a round of applause, please. Captain Harry has impressed me in so many different ways over so many different years that I'm just so proud to see him in this role with his family and his other family out here as well. And I just have to say you make the city of Prattville very proud. I'd like to know if you want to speak to the council. Well, I'm sorry.
I wasn't expecting that.
Well, how about this? Let's take a picture and then you can give you a moment to think about all that. do have one additional, because you already have the one on your uniform there, but I guess it's been a little bit of a tradition, an HR nightmare when I pull the pin out and stick it right on the end. But you know, I think they super glued this one together, so you don't have to worry about that tonight.
Appreciate
But
that.
congratulations.
Thank you.
Last chance for the microphone.
Just real quick, thank y'all, for the opportunity to serve, and been here 20 years and look forward to, a few more years before I hang it up. So I'm looking forward to being able to serve in this capacity. So thank y'all, and thanks to everybody out here too.
Thank you. Ken, Chief mentioned that your brigade is going to be moving over to the HR conference room immediately after a few more lieutenants, sergeants, corporals come up to continue on with their family there. But anyway, the next one we can ask to come up is Skip Talmadge, Lieutenant Skip Talmadge. He has been with the force for quite some time as well, and so I guess that's the reason why he's going to be the lieutenant now. He's bringing his whole family up here. But Lieutenant Talmadge has made himself known around the city of Prattville in so many various ways. He's been on patrol, school resource officer. He pulls for this one football team. I can't recall their name, but RT. I'm not going to go there. But you have definitely made a positive difference to the community here, and I do appreciate your friendship, your loyalty to the community here, and everything that you have done and will continue to do for this community and in your roles there. So, thank you. They did allow that one to come
Council Mtg, Council Jack.
In lieu of the microphone, yes. In lieu of the microphone.
Don't push. I do want to thank all the guys back there though.
But you don't want to finish.
Hey, we talked about this at church. I don't know, I'm looking all over.
All right. I tell you what, it's just things like that just make me proud to be a part of small town America. Richard White, if you'll come forward, you and your family. Sergeant White, and I've also known Mr. White, only sergeant for starting immediately, but have known Richard White for some time, and really appreciate everything that you have done, your commitment to the community, and that you do have a great looking family as well. So thank you for everything that you have done and will continue to do, and here's your badge. I opened it up on Thank you. So the audience knows I only have 10 more people to go for the police department. Then the fire comes up. How about a Nicholas Gilson cigar? He'll come on up with his family. And he's moving up to the rank of corporal. So we certainly appreciate all of his hard work and dedication, and look forward to many more years. Haven't really known you as well as I have some of the rest of them, but look forward to working with you, and anything we can do, please let us know.
Have Mama and Daddy come up too.
1, 2, 3.
Gregory Jones, if you'll come on up with your family. Corporal Gregory Jones, you know, it's an honor to work with everybody here, and look forward to many years with you and yours, and you know, and it's I guess it's a sort of tradition like this. That way we all get to know each other, know who we're working with and around, and so it's my honor to give you your corporate title.
Did anybody get Chief Thompson smuggling?
The next person, investigator, that I would like to come up, it's an Officer of the Year, and this Officer of the Year is by the U.S. Attorney Office, and Scott Baxley will come forward. As he's coming forward and his family, I'd just like to go over some of the acknowledgments that he has, and been a pleasure and honor for him representing the city of Prattville so many ways. But in June of 2016, Investigator Baxley began a human trafficking investigation. The case was not easy. Regardless of the difficulty, Investigator Baxley refused to allow the case to go unprosecuted. He contacted the Middle District of Alabama United States Attorney's Office and USAO, and we agreed to assist with him in that case. During this case, Investigator Baxley became part of the Middle District of Alabama Trafficking Force. They love these acronyms. I think it's the MDAL-HTTF. You can explain that to me later on. But it's the Human Trafficking Task Force. He was a task force leader and part of the executive committee. The executive committee is the core group of the MDAL-HTTF members who work to guide and grow the task force. Investigator Baxley's human trafficking investigation experience makes him an invaluable member of the task force, and officers throughout the state contacted him during this human trafficking exercise. Investigator Baxley's compassion and dedication to victims is steadfast. The victims in this case knew that Investigator Baxley cared for them and trusted him. The trust Investigator Baxley built with the victims caused the victims to be more cooperative during this prosecution. Several times in the investigation, the victims became distraught about the case, but because of Investigator Baxley's relationship with the victims, he was able to calm their fears and assure them. Because of Investigator Baxley's dedication to the fight against human trafficking, 2 dangerous individuals were convicted of human trafficking. Investigator Baxley should be recognized for his personal motivation, excellent teamwork, and professionalism he displayed during the duration of the calendar year of 2017. Furthermore, his exemplary performance demonstrates his dedication to the Middle District of Alabama, and more importantly, the republic to which he serves. It is my honor to recommend Investigator Baxley as Officer of the Year, and that is written by Holly W. Reed. So with that said, can we please give him a round of applause?
Would you like to take the time at the microphone?
And again, they're having a little recognition party over at the HR conference room, and I think they're going to be making a little bit of an exodus there. And while they're doing that, I'd like to thank the council for the remodeling that's going on around City Hall recently with HR departments and the city clerk's office has been greatly appreciated and well used, and some well spent taxpayer dollars. police work is very interesting and rewarding, and it takes a special person to be able to come up through the ranks and have the dedication and love for the communities to be able to do that work. With all that said, I also have a representative here tonight from Jackson, Florida. I think it's supposed to be pronounced just Chris, but Chris Newenswander, if you'll come forward, I think you have a report for us.
You got it right. So I'm not nearly as interesting with than guys with guns and badges, but I am here to report on the 2017 financial statements. So we issued a clean or unmodified opinion on March 23rd, 2018. So the financial statements are issued and ready for your consumption, all of about 110 pages of them. So quite ready for reading. What's in there is a hodgepodge of stuff, but I'll tell you just an overview. There's a couple of narratives. It's a story of how the year went for the finances, so it's a good reading. I'll hit off a couple numbers there and we'll be done. I want to say that for 2016, the city did receive the GFOA Certificate of Excellence in Financial Reporting. That is the gold standard of third-party standards to get that certificate. It is not easy, and we get feedback from them, and we've seemed to make them happy over the years with Daniel's and his team's diligence. So that's a good thing. The bond guys like it. They like seeing that certificate. So it is well commended. I believe, is that our third one, Daniel? I believe so. So 3 in a row. We intend to keep it going because once you get it, you want to keep it. Okay. So there's a lot of interesting stuff at the end of the statements that are more than just balance sheets and income statements. There's statistical information. You can learn all about how our sales tax breakdown by type of entity, our economic factors, our demographics, interesting stuff, debt margins, our principal employers are baked in here deep in the statements, employees by department, number of soccer fields. I mean, we get down in it. We also include in the financial statements 3 component units. Component units are considered entities that are part of the city. And so the library, the airport, the HPRA, imported stuff, they're all audited and included in these statements. I want to hit on just some very high level numbers, because when you think about how big is practical, what does it mean for these financial statements and what do they work on every year? The city has about $24 million in cash and accounts receivable. And I'm just hitting very big numbers. These break down into very little numbers. $71 million in property, plant, and equipment. Long-term debt is $60 million, but part of that is pension obligations of about $20. So of debt that you've taken on, about $40. That leaves, if you do the math, I know I went fast, that leaves around $40 million of combined net position when you collapse everything down. So, you know, that is a good thing that rating agencies, the GFOA, your peers, your other colleagues, when you go to league meetings, could be jealous of. So when you look at how did you do for the year, in an accrual basis, full accrual, just like IBM will report their earnings, we're going to report our full accrual earnings as $11 million. Now, there's some non-cash contributions to the city in that, but a couple of things that made this year even better than last. You're finally seeing your wastewater rating increases come on in. So it has bumped up your enterprise activities up to about $15 million of revenue. So that's going in the right direction as you continue to build out and prepare the system. I wanted just to point out one thing, and this is something I like to keep in mind myself. Unrestricted revenues. You know, these are the things that come in that pay for the police, the fire department. They pay the salaries, they keep the lights on, they provide what you see around you. Your big one is sales tax, obviously. It's $23 million. It drops off quickly after that, not unlike any other municipality. Real and personal property, $3 million, and then you go right on down to lodging at $2 million. So it really, sales tax is the key. And then the other question you might say, where do we spend our money? Government type activities, about $34 million. business type activities, your wastewater system, all your enterprise activities, about 6. So it's a $40 million spend. So just some numbers in there. Two other things that I would point out on a fund level basis. So we talked about full accrual and $40 million of net position on a fund level basis, just for the general fund, and that is a good number that bond guys look at. There's about $8 million of positive, unrestricted dollars, and you can tie that to cash. So another good thing. The fund level statements had a positive year of earnings also, or income, a little bit tighter. The only other thing that I would point out, and then take any questions, is I love budget to actual. It's built in here on page 22 and 23. We beat our projections on revenue, so we were to the positive. These numbers are tiny. I printed it too small, but so I know I may need those. $769,000 to the good on the revenue side, and $1.2 million to the good on the expense side. So you combine that, a nice swing. You know, you can tell that you've continued, I maybe said this last year, managing the expenses, being pleasantly surprised when good quarters come along. And it's a good report. It's a good report. Daniel and his team just carry on the tradition from Doug to there wasn't even a hiccup when Daniel came in. And this was his second year going through the audit. And I would say, last thing, the residents, the folks that live here, if you're still around, you should be proud of how conscientious, and I would say somewhat conservative, the finances have been maintained just from the raw numbers, just from looking at the numbers, and how, again, budget to actual, there's a great example. So with that, I'll stop talking.
Questions?
Any questions of Mr. Newenswander?
I have one. Nobody else up here. How would you describe our current debt load as both conservative and strategic in terms of meeting long-term goals as well as management with our minimum resources?
Well, sounds like you put pen and paper on that one.
Try to put a little thought to it.
Well, listen, yeah, so listen, I don't know, as long as I've been practicing in this niche, well over 15, probably closer to 20 years, anybody to prepay their debt. In 17, you prepaid approximately $3.1 million of debt. The cash was there because you did not overspend when the cash came in. You held on to it and you paid it off. So it's like paying off your house early. It's a good thing. It's going to free up things for things down the road. Y'all probably know this more sooner than me. In December, another series was early paid. So $1.5 million was early paid. So that's just an example of how I think you're taking care of business. You're doing what you said you'd do. I think we said we were going to increase the penny at some point on sales tax, and we're going to pay off our debts. So the city of Prattville, y'all did it, and so that's probably the best example I have without going into details of debt margin calculations and all that stuff. Thank you, and thanks to the team. Daniel has a large supporting cast that all play a big part in it, from Kathy to everybody up and down these halls we visit with, and some of you guys. So, and if I haven't talked to you already, you're next. So just get ready.
All right. Thank you. Well, one thing I'd like to echo off of that, I mean, that is good news and everything else, but I'd also like to thank our citizens who continue to live and stay, work and play in the city of Prattville, and continue to purchase items here. Also want to thank the department heads, the employees, because without their hard work and due diligence, because the numbers that I heard is that we didn't spend as much as we had budgeted. We collected more than what we had anticipated. So both of those were positive numbers there. So it's, and one of his words that I heard was, teamwork, and that's what it takes. And so it's some good numbers there. Well, another point of privilege, and I promise I think I only have two more. Miss Tri-County, she'll come up. Miss Caitlin McTeer. She's the first ever, and she will represent Otaga, Elmore, and Montgomery as Miss Alabama in June. So if you'll come forward, and I'll turn the microphone off, and good meeting.
Yeah. Okay. Good to talk. Yeah. Awesome. Hey, so my name is Council Mtg, and I have the honor of serving as the inaugural Miss Tri-County, which is really cool. I represent Elmore, Montgomery, and Otaga County, so I represent you. And so it has been an absolute wonderful first few months being able to serve. I was crowned in January, and we're actually going to have our next pageant in July. So I don't get to serve for a full entire year, but you'll have 2 new representatives in July, both an outstanding teen and a miss this year. I get to go to Miss Alabama in June, which will be so fun, at Samford University in Birmingham, and compete with 49 other contestants from the state of Alabama, and actually a few girls from this community, Lauren Chambliss and Braden Lazenby, and so I get to go to the University of Alabama with them. I heard they had some Auburn fans in here. Did they already leave? Good.
One.
Oh no. We still love you, it's okay. But yeah, so I attend the University of Alabama with 2 representatives from this community that absolutely blow my mind with their accomplishments every single day. And so we would love your support coming up in the next preliminary that we have. The Miss America system is all about scholarships, and I have the privilege of being able to say that I should graduate debt-free from the University of Alabama with both my bachelor's and my master's because of the pageants that I'm a part of. Thank you. And so that's from being a part of the Miss America organization and also organizations like Distinguished Young Women of Alabama. And so it's the support of the citizens, the city, to be able to provide those scholarships for girls. And because it's so much more than a beauty pageant, I definitely did not have the confidence skills that I do have to be able to stand in front of you and the rest of the city and be able to talk and have confidence in who I am. And so this organization has definitely transformed me from the inside out and also given me a heart for community service. My platform is childhood hunger, or food insecurity, and so every contestant is required to have their own personal platform. And so I've been able to already start working within this community. Right now we have a food drive going on between all 3 counties, and so we are definitely making a difference here in Otaga County as well as Montgomery and Elmore, and we would just love your support with the pageant coming up. So as you're talking about your budget, think about Miss Tri-County in the upcoming year, of course. So thank you so much for your time, and I'm so excited to serve for the next few months and to represent you all at Miss Alabama. Thank you.
Well, that's some good news there, interesting news, and actually we have one of our county partners who is still here with us, John Paul O'Driscoll. If you'd like to come up, last point of privilege for tonight. Give us some news on the spring cleanup.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. I'm John Paul O'Driscoll with the Otaga County Commission, but I also serve as chair of Otaga County PALS, and I came to announce spring cleanup. I'll have a handout. Thank you. And spring cleanup, or the annual Bob Lee spring cleanup, is this month. It'll culminate on April 28th, and it will coincide with the statewide spring cleanup sponsored by Alabama PALS. So we invite the councillors to encourage their constituents to help us. We have delivered the flyer to every church in Prattville, and so that's in order to get the word out. And we just encourage the councillors to support our efforts to clean up in Prattville and Otaga County. And I really appreciate Mayor Gillespie's lead, and so we work well together to keep Prattville clean. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, that does end my points of privilege, so I do appreciate your patience on that one. On the agenda tonight, there's a resolution to purchase a new dock system at Cooter's Pond. These docks were installed in the early 90s and are approximately 25 years old. The docks are beyond repair, and this new dock system will be in place for the Alabama Bass Trails tournament in June, bringing in $225 votes at that time. This is a budgeted item in the Parks and Recreation Department to do great enhancement to Cougars Pond, but I think this whole area also goes back to some of that investment some of our predecessors had done with the RTJ golf course coming in, along with some other amenities and everything else. I think it's just another example, a good example of some of these investments paying and continuing on. Councilors, sometimes we all take for granted from time to time some of the basic utility services in our community. And I recently spoke with Alabama Power representative today. I wanted to thank them for their reinvestment and hard work that they continue to put into our community. And I have not been provided any official dollar amount, but it is a very substantial investment in our community, and Alabama Power is truly a partner in Prattville, and they continue to provide dependable and reliable services to our citizens. And talking with their representative, they said that that is the reason for all this newfound work that we found. We see them in and around Prattville, and probably from time to time when I've stood up here and talked about I've had some good news and bad news. When I start talking about some paving projects, the good news is paving projects are coming. The bad news, paving projects are coming. And that's also some with our other, with the utilities from time to time. As you see these crews out there, there are sometimes in some of the hazardous ways, right-of-ways that we have, and so if we are out and about on our daily duties, please watch out for them. But also we need to be very thankful to Alabama Power to be able to give us that very dependable service that they have. But another partner of Prattville that I also like to speak about is, and I'll look around the room a little bit, see if anybody recognizes the acronym I have here is REA. Maybe some of the newer ones might not, but like my executive assistant for certain. But they've also been known as RUS, R-U-S. But I think most of us know them now as Central Alabama Electric Cooperative, but give away the rest of what I was trying to hold back just a little bit on. But they have also been making an investment in and around Prattville of approximately $500,000. So I think that shows the signs of very successful things to be coming. I can't thank them enough for all their hard work and due diligence and commitment and investment into our community. We're blessed to have such partners at Prattville in our city. On another note, I've been in contact with Superintendent Mtg in regards to providing additional school resource officers. He has provided documentation for further review, and Chief Thompson reviewing this information and will be presenting some information or suggested changes to the Public Safety Committee meeting. This was also discussed at the recent Public Safety Committee meeting. We'll keep you updated as the process moves forward. I want to pass along the appreciation that the Ottawa County Board of Education has expressed for the recent surplus of iPads for technology centers. The council, you've surplus some of these iPads, and we've received multiple thank you letters and know that they will greatly benefit the school system and our community as a whole. Councilors, in front of you, I hope you'll find a proposed amendment that I will be recommending to the Planning Commission. It's the second page. You see where some of the lines have been almost in the middle of the page, just right of R3 have been black lined. Those are going to be the amendments that I will be proposing, taking to the Planning Commission, and these proposed amendments are to remove the uses permitted on appeal in section 71. It's under R3 zoning. And ask that you please review this, as I'll be making this recommendation to the Planning Commission. Hopefully in due time this amendment will come back before this council body for your consideration. If all goes well, this could be a 90-day process. But also I'd like to announce and give kudos not only to some council members, but our city clerk, my executive assistant for getting it up on the website. But please check out the new boards and committee application that has been posted to the website. If you know of anybody, or if you're anybody here that's interested in serving in this capacity, please fill out an application and get it back to us. I always like to leave on a positive note, and I want to leave everybody with a positive note this evening. Recently, there was some very interesting news that it's an approximate total investment has been achieved in the very near future, that over the last 4 years in the Daniel Pratt region, we'll be reaching the $1 billion mark. And that just goes to show that some of the success that so many activities have been having, so many different infrastructures. You know, it's not just one thing that brings people here. It's not one thing that brings businesses here. It's a multitude of things. And if you use this as a benchmark, I think that it shows that a lot of the investments have been working, have been paying off. But these investments have been going on for a long, long time, ever since Daniel Pratt first arrived here. Mr. President, that's the end of my lengthy report.
Thank you, sir. Does anyone have any questions or comments to the mayor?
Thank you.
Thank you. This time we'll move into reports on special committees. Councilor Jackson.
No, sir.
Councilor Brown.
No, sir.
Councilor Starnes.
Yes, sir. The police committee met April 13th at 9 o'clock. We discussed the budget, resource officers, and the public safety building. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Cables.
No, sir.
Councilor Stritchett.
Yes, sir.
Recently, the fire committee met and we discussed budget, need for additional employees, need for a generator at their facility, and other internal situations that we're working on.
Thank you. Councilor Boone.
No, sir.
Thank you. At this time, we will ask Mr. Oakley to come forward and discuss our current financial matters.
I'll be brief, but I do have the full allotment of reports for the quarter end. But the first page of your packet is the general fund revenue report. It shows that we have received $20,066,460 for the fiscal year to date, and this is up 1.59% when compared to the same period in the prior year. The next page is the tax breakdown comparison, and on the tax side, we were up 10.42% for the month over the previous March. The next 3 pages show the general fund expenses broken down by department, and we are 1/2 of the way through the fiscal year on the expense side, and we have spent 51.7% of our budgeted expenditures in the general fund. The next page is the wastewater enterprise fund income statement, and the wastewater fund generated a net income from operations of $68,052 for the month of March. Operating expenses, as well as expenses overall, are coming in under budget for the first half of the year. Next page is the sanitation enterprise fund income statement. And the sanitation fund reported a net loss of $396,168 for the month of March. This was due in large part to payment for a sidearm truck, which was about $237,000. And we also paid for 5 loads of cans during the month for about $140,000. And we also had a third pay period in March. So it was a busy month for sanitation. But expenses for the year are still in line with the budget at this point in the year. Next page is the judicial special revenue fund income statement. And the judicial fund reported a net income of $45,982 for the month of March. Expenses remained slightly under budget for the first half of the year as well. Next 3 statements in your packet we only present quarterly. It's the gas tax fund, capital projects fund, and group health fund. All 3 are presented with January, February, and March balances. As far as the gas tax fund goes, the gas tax revenue is coming in over the budgeted amount for so far this year, which is positive. The budgeted projects for this fund at this point are solely paving projects, and they haven't begun yet. Next page is the capital projects fund income statement. Just on the revenue side, lodging fee revenue is coming in over budget so far as well. Main activity in this fund relate to a handful of projects. We have the South Industrial Access Road project, Road and Bridge project, Project Platinum, Woodville Drainage project, and East Main Street Signals project, and the Boardman Drive extension project. Next page is the group health fund income statement. And so far this year, the group health fund has an accumulated net income to date of $68,628 for the fiscal year. And there have been no extra general fund supplements needed to this point, which is outstanding. Next page is the bank balances report. The total of all bank balances citywide was $23,016,503 at the end of March. The last page in the packet is the citywide accounts payable and debt balances report. Total outstanding AP and debt balance at the end of the month was $62,070,820. That's the end of my report.
Thank you, sir. Any questions of Mr. Oakley? Thank you very much. This time we'll have an opportunity to create a consent agenda and place the following items on it. Resolution number 1, to authorize the mayor to have various weeded lots abated for Title 11, Chapter 67 of the Code of Alabama, 1975 as amended. Resolution number 2, to declare various weeded lots to be a public nuisance, order their abatement, and set a public hearing for Title 11, Chapter 67 of the Code of Alabama, 1975 as amended. Resolution number 3, to name voting delegate and alternates for the annual business session during the 2018 Alabama League of Municipalities Convention in Montgomery. Here will entertain a motion to place these resolutions on the consent agenda.
So moved.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second. Jerry.
We have a second. Councilor Starnes. All those in favor of placing these items on the consent agenda signify by raising your right hand. All opposed by a like sign. We now have a consent agenda before us. Chair will entertain a motion to adopt the consent agenda.
So moved.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. Is there any discussion concerning any of the items on our consent agenda? All those in favor of adopting the consent agenda signify by raising your right hand. All opposed by a like sign, and our consent agenda is adopted. Moving into our regular agenda, resolution number 1, to amend the FY 2018 budget and to release funds for the purchase of one Alumina Dock X9 aluminum floating wet slip dock system for Cooters Pond Park from Lake Martin Dock Company for the Parks and Recreation Department at a cost not to exceed $47,583. Councilor Boone, will you introduce this resolution?
Yes, sir. Whereas the City of Prattville Parks and Recreation Department has a need to replace the dock system at Cooters Pond Park, and whereas Lake Martin Dock Company has the ability to replace said dock system at a cost not to exceed $47,583, and whereas said dock system is a budgeted expense of the Parks and Recreation Department. Now therefore be it resolved by the City Council of the City of Prattville that the fiscal year 2018 budget is amended as follows. Decrease Parks and Rec Cooters Pond Park by $47,583 and increase Parks and Rec capital outlay by $47,583. Be it further resolved by the City Council of the City of Prattville that funds in an amount not to exceed $47,583 are hereby authorized and approved to be paid to Lake Martin Dock Company for said dock system. And said funds are approved and appropriated from fiscal year 2018 budget, line item Parks and Rec capital outlay. So moved, Mr. President.
Thank you. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. Is there any discussion concerning this resolution? All those in favor of adopting this resolution signify by raising your right hand. All opposed by a like sign. This resolution is adopted. Ordinance, item number 2. Petition for the annexation of A-Band property at the west end of Sydney Drive. Council President Pro Tem Brown, will you introduce this ordinance, please?
Yes, sir. Be it ordained by the City Council of the City of Prattville, Alabama, that the City of Prattville is a city with a population of over 6,000 inhabitants located in the state of Alabama, and that it has been presented by petition by all owners of property located and contained which are contiguous to the corporate limits of the City of Prattville, as they are now situated. and that the property described in the petition sought to be annexed is as described in Attachment A and shown in Attachment B, and that said property does not lie within the corporate limits of any other municipality, and that all owners as defined by Section 11-42-20 Code of Alabama 1975 as amended have executed said petition requesting the property be annexed into the city of Prattville, and that the city of Prattville finds that it is to the best interest of the city of Prattville and its inhabitants to annex said property, and that the City Council of the City of Prattville finds that the petition has met all requirements of Title 11-42-20 through 11-42-23 Code of Alabama 1975 as amended. Be it further ordained by the City Council of the City of Prattville, Alabama, that the corporate limits of the City of Prattville be extended and rearranged so as to embrace and include the following property as described in Attachment A and shown in Attachment B, and that such property shall become a part of the corporate area of Prattville, Alabama, upon passage and publication of this ordinance as required by law. Be it further ordained that the extension of sewer lines in the newly annexed areas shall not be provided until such time as it becomes economically feasible for the city to provide same. Be it further ordained that a copy of the petition be filed in the office of the Judge of Probate of Watauga, Alabama, and that this ordinance be published in the Prattville Progress of Watauga County, Alabama. So moved, Mr. President.
Thank you. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. In order to move this legislation forward this evening, we require suspension of the rules. What is the pleasure of the council?
I move that we suspend the rules.
We have a motion to suspend. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. All those in favor of suspending the rules signify by raising your right hand. All opposed by a like sign. It is unanimous. The rules are suspended. We are now back to the ordinance. Is there any discussion concerning the ordinance? Hearing none, all those in favor of its adoption signify by raising your right hand. All opposed by a like sign. This ordinance is adopted. This concludes the agenda we have for this evening. This time, council will entertain comments from persons present. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Jerry Simmons, 141 North Chestnut Street. Just one comment. I didn't get a chance to look at your agenda till right before I left home. So in reviewing that last annexation ordinance that you just passed, and I looked at the attachments and the print was awful small. So my question was, what zone are you bringing that 5 or 6 acre parcel into the city? In other words, it's either going to be probably R1, R2, R3, or R4. And I would have expected that to be in your ordinance. I thought maybe you were going to amend the ordinance tonight to include that zoning.
Mr. Davis, on his way up, sir.
The area that was just annexed was basically pre-zoned. It was brought up as part of the larger rezoning of the Lynbrook subdivision. I believe that was at your last meeting, or maybe the meeting before that. Alabama law allows that certain properties to be pre-zoned, and this is a small 5-acre triangle property within a larger parcel that is part of the Lynbrook 6 subdivision. That property was proposed as R3. So once this annexation is complete by publication as required, then it will become R3.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Duke. That's really all I had. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any other comments for the council? Yes, ma'am.
I'm not sure if this is where I need to address this or not, but I understand you're going to have a school committee meeting.
Could you give us your name and address, please?
Mariette Diller, Jenny Drive.
Thank you.
You're supposed to have this committee meeting for the schools on May 3rd, and it's supposed to be a public hearing, but we don't even know what it's about. We have no minutes. I don't even know how we can effectively come and speak at a public hearing without this information. So I'm not sure if this is going to be an actual committee, and if it is, and it's had minutes, those should be posted where we can at least look at them. If it's not a committee, then why was it done so secretive so that nobody else knew? I mean, you're talking the whole town, nobody knew about it for a whole year? That just doesn't make sense to me. And I'm happy, if you have had meetings and they haven't been posted, you're violating the Open Meetings Act. So I guess, and you can't answer these questions. Well, I guess we'll address this in the public hearing. But we need to know if this is a committee. If it's not a committee, if it's concerned citizens, if it is a committee, we would like to at least have their meeting notes, your recommendations, so that we can do our research too before we come to this. And then, the city doesn't make a huge profit on the sanitation or the sewage. We don't make a profit on the schools either. The city creates the revenue by enticing people to spend their money here, and this was just discussed in the budget as our largest source of revenue. And how much money do you think people are going to spend when they're shopping, when the roads are in disrepair, and they're not feeling safe? I think more time and energy should be spent improving our infrastructure before we add anything else to an already overflowing plate. If you really want to help to improve the schools, why don't we work with the school system and try to increase their funding? They're not doing that bad with what they have. They're the lowest funded. I'm sure they kind of pad some of their grades, all school systems do, but we could help with their funding. That's it.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to address the council this evening? Yes, ma'am.
John Lee Finnegan, 211 Deer Trace. As you all well know how I feel about the public school, Prattville City public school system. The first time I heard about it was Saturday when I read it in the progress. And I was just astounded. So I asked the three gentlemen and who the commission or the committee members were, and I just received an answer from Mr. Starr and said it'll be at the May 3rd meeting. However, I also contacted WAKA just by chance. I usually watch WSFA on news at night, and I was watching it, WAKA, excuse me. So I contacted them regarding it because the reporter had interviewed Kyle Glover. And so anyway, I wrote to him and he wrote to me, wrote back, Andrew James, the reporter, and he says, I attempted to get interviews with the city council members and the mayor about this committee that's been meeting, but no one was available Monday. From what the one parent, he is on the committee, who I interviewed, tells me this is a grassroots committee that has been meeting. He told me that many different people have been to the meetings, including county leaders and representatives from the Board of Education, as well as parents and business owners. And again, and I bring up what the last lady said, that I don't understand why this hasn't been more public, why we haven't had more information. It affects all of us, even those of us that don't have children, because if property taxes go up, that's going to affect me. I don't have children, but it's going to affect me. And I just think that we need to be more transparent on this information. This is a big deal. This is a very big deal. We should get the recommendations down. We should get the committee members. We should get their names. I mean, they're making decisions and recommendations that are going to affect all of us. And 3 council members are on this. So I think it's very important that we have all this information before that public hearing. And that is my main concern, that there has just been nothing. I knew nothing, and you know how I'm reading, and I know things. And to read that on the front page of the Advertiser on Saturday was the first I ever heard of it. So please, ladies, gentlemen, get the information out there so we citizens can come to that public hearing and ask the questions and get the answers and maybe give it to you ahead of time, you know, so that the answers can come back to us. But this is just too important. This is just too important. I have other things that I'll bring up at that meeting, but right now I just want the transparency and the information out there. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else present like to address the council this evening? This time we'll move into closing comments. Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir. Again, I would like to thank all the hardworking citizens that we have around Prattle that really love and care about this community as much as we do, and thank the department heads and the citizens, the employees that work for this great community each and every day, and this council as well. So thank you one and all.
Thank you. Councilor Jackson?
No, sir.
Councilor Brown?
No, sir.
Councilor Starnes?
No, sir.
Councilor Cables?
No, sir.
Councilor Stritchett?
No, sir.
Councilor Boone?
No, sir.
Just briefly, I too express appreciation for the 6 officers that were recognized tonight, for the efforts of all of our staff, for the great financial report that we have, and the continued physical fiduciary responsibility that they are exhibiting, for Ms. Mtg, for our opportunity that she has to represent us, and for the opportunity that we have to support picking up and collecting litter, as well as the opportunity that we extended support to the Board of Education with some of our surplus property. All of these things go together to help make Prattville who we are and what we are. Thank you. This time, the Chair will entertain a motion for adjournment. We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a second. All those in favor, signify by raising your right hand. All those by like signs, we are adjourned.